much. Thank you so much for joining this afternoon's Toolbox Tuesday session. Again, this is part 2 of SCAG's Transportation Safety Predictive Modeling and Analysis platform, where last week we were introduced to the platform and some of its capabilities and got some great background on why it was developed. And today we're going to be diving into some of those tools and analyses that we did not get to last week. So we are looking forward to that. So with that, I will pass it over to my colleague, Mike Gaynor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amanda, and thank you everyone for joining us again for today's Toolbox Tuesday session. Today's session, again, is the second of our 2 consecutive Toolbox Tuesday events that will focus on our currently under development transportation safety performance modeling and analysis platform. We're developing this in coordination with the California Office of Transportation Safety OTS grant that we initiated for federal fiscal year 24, and will be continuing into federal fiscal year 25. Again, my name is Mike Gaynor. I'm a senior planner with our performance assessment and monitoring team here at SCAG, and I'll be kicking off today's session before handing things over to our featured speaker, Jonah McKay from our consultant team, Cidian. And while we preview the session, I encourage you to introduce yourself in the chat. Next slide, please. Okay, we'll start off with a quick review of some meeting logistics. Today's presentation is expected to take about an hour and a half, depending on the questions we receive. It could be a bit shorter. Today's all participant lines will be muted upon entry, and there will be opportunities for question and answer at the end of the presentation. However, if you have any questions during Jonah's presentation, we encourage you to type them into the chat or use the raise hand function to indicate that you have a question, and we'll get to you. Today's session is being recorded, and the presentation and recording will be posted on the SCAG website and sent to participants after today's event. Next slide, please. I'd first like to offer our land acknowledgement. We are currently on the historical lands of Indigenous peoples who have been the traditional caretakers of the land in the Southern California region. And as you can see on the map, we have a lot of tribal groups that have continue to live here in the SCAG region. And I am in Rancho Cucamonga, which is on the ancestral lands of the Gabrielino Tongva people. And if you haven't already, I encourage you to visit the resources shared in the chat to learn more about the Indigenous peoples in the communities where you live. Next slide, please. The focus of today's session will be a continuation of the demonstration that Cidian initiated at last week's Toolbox Tuesday session, highlighting some of the features of the SCAG transportation safety and predictive modeling platform that we're developing with the support of our consultant team from Cidian. Again, today's event is the second of two consecutive Toolbox Tuesday sessions that will be introducing this platform. The first was held last week on January 14th. Now I'd like to provide a quick introduction to our featured speaker, Jonah McKay, who is the customer success and onboarding lead at Cidian. Jonah has managed successful software implementations with state, city, and regional transportation agencies throughout the nation. And Jonah will lead the demonstration today of the transportation safety predictive modeling platform as that we're developing together for the SCAG region. With that, I'll now hand things over to Jonah McKay. Jonah?
Excellent. Mike, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Let me just share my screen here. We can pick up from where we left off and dive into some of the deeper functionality within the crash tool. All right. So you all should be able to see my screen at this point. Just to kind of recap what we went through last week. We walked through kind of a broad overview of the crash platform, both how we got here, as well as the data sources that we're leveraging within the solution. A primary data source here is going to be crash data, right? That's generally coming from SWITers and TIMS, but as kind of that transition to the new CCRS continues, we'll be bringing in crash data from that platform as well. We're also layering in, base GIS data, boundaries that were given to us by our partners at SCAG, et cetera. So you'll start to see some of these things interplay and overlay with each other as we start to go through. Last week, we covered some of the core functionality of this platform, starting with things like the base crash map, queries, designing custom dashboards, and wanted to spend time today both going through some of the more, complex or technical pieces of the tool, as well as kind of open the room up for specific, conversation about workflows, right? A great strength of this platform is that previous workflows that would touch on one or two or three disparate systems and disparate data sets can all be brought into one central place to streamline and really optimize some of the work that you might be doing. I got a couple of suggestions of places to maybe focus on from Mike, so we'll be diving into those. But if people have specific comments or want to talk about specific workflows that you might be doing as it relates to transportation safety, working with crash data, analyzing crash data, happy to hear those. Just put those in the chat and we'll get to them over the course of our time here together today. Really where I want to start today is talking about dashboards. We'll get into some other tools like our Analyze Areas tool, get into some tools like our automated collision diagramming tool, and a few others. And then we'll kind of open it up again for some of those more open-ended workflows and how do I do X or how do I do Y within the crash platform itself. As we discussed last time, if you would like access to this system, please send an email to Mike Gaynor, and we'll get you a login as soon as possible. Excellent. So diving in here, this is the screen that when you log into the crash tool is going to come up front and center for you. We've built out a number of dashboards for SCAG that aim to kind of highlight priority outcomes, priority initiatives, and give immediate access to in-depth analysis as it relates to safety outcomes across the entire MPO, and the outcomes across the region as a whole. You'll see here we have Vision Zero, benchmarking, crash audit, highway safety improvement planning, programming, HSM predictive analysis, spatial statistics, vulnerable road users, and even a countermeasures dashboard as well. So we'll start to get into some things here. If you were on the call last time, some of this functionality is going to look a little bit similar, which is very much intentional and by design, right? All of the maps within the crash tool are going to function exactly the same, right? I can start to zoom in, pan around my map, start to get an understanding of what's going on here. I have the core functionality we're used to here on the right or underneath down here at the bottom. We're starting off just looking at our Vision Zero dashboard. right? Looking at, organizational goals of reducing traffic fatalities, right? Reducing the severity of crashes as they occur. And the goal of this dashboard is really highlight and put focus on some of those most severe outcomes, right? You can see here that in this case, we're looking at the last week of data that's currently within the city platform. Again, this will be being expanded very soon. But the past week of data that's in the platform, we can start to get a high level view of what's going on, right? From a safety perspective, right? How many severe crashes occurred, right? These are your crashes that are Ks and As, right? How many major injuries for people involved in those crashes, right? So this is a crash level statistic. This is getting down to that human level. How many people were specifically impacted by some of these crashes? If I click this little icon up here, I can start to get a sense of of people involved in those crashes. What percent were drivers, right? What percent were pedestrians or cyclists, right? Maybe I'm doing specific vulnerable road user analysis. Now I can start to articulate what that problem is using real data and real numbers to back me up. As with anywhere else in this tool, you see those three lines, that hamburger icon, as we sometimes call it. You will be prompted with the ability to download this chart. As you see it here, to play around with the colors and maybe give it a name, choose a file type, and pull that into a report that they're working on, or a PowerPoint, or a presentation, or any number of things that are existing, any number of deliverables rather that are existing outside of the Crash platform. So scroll down, we have other kind of high-level summary statistics: how many cyclists, how many pedestrians, motorcyclists involved, how many people involved overall, or any of these DUI crashes. And as I continue to scroll, we're given high-level summary information as well that dives deep into the crash data that we've been able to see. I have a table down here that will show all of those crashes, right? If I want to start to specifically look at a specific collision type, I can start to sort and rank these to dive in a little bit further. If I click any of these, it's going to bring me right to where that crash occurred on the map. I can go and view crash details and investigate further if I wanted to. We've been looking at the last week, but if I wanted to look at the last month, at the last year, I have that ability as well. You'll see that the dates have changed up here. It's easy to switch, month to month or year over year to start to dive a little bit deeper into the data that we're seeing. Vision Zero, very much focused on those most severe outcomes, right? I want to, highlighting Ks and As from a CABCO severity perspective, but maybe we want to broaden that view. In that case, we have what we call our crash audit dashboard, just going to look very similar to the Vision Zero dashboard with a notable change that it's widening the scope, right? We're bringing in all injury types. We're bringing in all crash types, right? So those property damage only crashes, crashes where no one is injured, no one is killed, right? Now we have a wider view of what's going on from a regional perspective. All these charts are going to function similarly as we're used to. Get down to these if need be, and interact with this map however I like. One piece of functionality that's contained within the crash audit is this yearly summary. This is starting to take a temporal view of looking at crash data across the region, right? We can start to see over the course of weeks, over the course of the year, the intensity, right, of crashes, right? In this case, how many are occurring on a certain day? I can hover over and get the quick number here. I can start to focus on, right, what bracket, is this, specifically a really terrible day, or is this in line with trends? What's going on? I can start to, as I go back in time, see, annualized trends, right? In this case, we're looking at 2020. I can start to see in March that crashes go down, significantly, right, for a number of months, coinciding with, with COVID lockdowns in response to the pandemic. If I scroll down here, we're starting to be able to see high-level summary statistics, right? What's the season with the most crashes? What day might have the most crashes? Just to give you a little bit more insight into some of those temporal trends that might guide policy or might guide future analysis. And start to look at severity breakdowns here, as well as kind of crashes over time. Noting that 2024, the data there is not complete, right? So this is going to look a little bit skewed. Continuing here, we'll go to our benchmarking dashboard. What this is going to start to allow you to do is start to look at not only kind of crash severity breakdown, but also look into things like historical trends and compare yourselves, right, from geographically to peers, both within the region as well as outside of it, right? How is the region doing? How is the state doing? How are we, as a nation doing when it comes to transportation safety? Some of these are really useful summary statistics for things like grant applications or putting the analysis that you're doing in context. Right now, we're looking at this crash severity breakdown. You can see here, we've turned on all the different kind of categories of crashes here. So look at PDO and injury and fatal crashes over the course of a little under 2 years. And then looking at collision type over here on the right, but we can start to get a sense of, of all of the PDO crashes, how many of these, are rear ends, right? What percentage of rear end crashes are PDO crashes or injury crashes or are fatal crashes? And dive into the numbers a little bit more just by hovering and exploring some of these different data sets. If I continue over here at the top, I can start to look into historical trends, right, over time, right? In this case, we're looking at fatalities per 100,000 population, right? But how are we doing? How is California doing? How is the Pacific region, right, doing? How is the United States doing? Start to compare trends over time, right? What is that rate of change? Are fatalities decreasing, right? Are they increasing? How are we doing, again, at scale? We also have this kind of geographic comparison, right? Can start to drill down at a number of different kind of target levels. Maybe want to expand things, start to look at the entire United States. How we're doing compared, to regional peers, how we're compared to national peers, et cetera. Again, all these can be easily exported if we want to do some further investigation or drop that into a different platform. Continuing along the top here, we'll dive into our Highway Safety Improvement Program dashboard. What this is doing, it's starting to grab and rank both intersections and segments across the entire region, right? So, what are my top intersections from a safety hazard concern, right? What are my top signalized versus my top unsignalized intersections? We can get to that level of granularity here. If I scroll down, you'll see that we can start to rank and sort, these top intersections by a number of different variables. Our default is EPDO, but if I wanted to specifically look at fatalities, I could dive into that or start to stack rank by number of injuries, right? We're seeing a lot here at California 60, Grand Ave, not a lot of fatalities, right? So this wouldn't show highly from a fatalities ranking, but there is obviously a safety concern here. Let's look into it a little bit more. If I scroll down, you'll also see that we have the same functionality for segments. Again, this is a region-wide view of segments and intersections. If I wanted to scroll in, start to get a better sense of, Cucamonga, I can start to see what some of those top segments and intersections might be, right, within my specific purview or my specific area. If I want to click on any of these, I can go directly to that intersections profile page for more exploration. We'll dive into this a little bit later, some of the tools that are available from those intersection or segment profile pages. can always change the date range, right? Right now we're looking at, again, for beginning of 2023 through late 2024. And maybe I just want to look, at the last, rolling basis, 1 year from available data. You can start to dive in, see how these sorts of trends might change over time. Continuing here, we also have the SHSP dashboard, right, focusing on focus areas from the Strategic Highway Safety Plan. These are more so your summary statistics, right, with a couple of different focus areas, all fatalities and serious injuries, impaired drivers, pedestrians. You can start to generate, again, some of these summary statistics. Are there temporal trends, both the week or by month or hour of the day? And really dive in and start to see what some of the more hazardous days of the week or times of the day are. How is sex and age, service condition, all sorts of different ways to slice and dice this stuff. Pedestrians here, see that these start to change. And now we're only focusing on fatalities and serious injuries of pedestrians by sex and age across time. Continuing along, one piece that's absolutely worth highlighting is this HSM predictive analysis tool. This is leveraging mathematical relationships, right, that are described in the HSM to start to look at areas of concern, right, based on roadway characteristics, based on crash patterns and crash types. Where can we predict higher levels of crashes, more crashes across the region? There are a number of different kind of variables and ways we can start to look at this. Right now, we're just looking at average total crashes, but maybe I want to look at something that's a little bit more action oriented, right? Maybe I want to look at, observed predicted ratio, right? So how many have we actually seen compared to how much, based on HSM, relationships we would expect to see at a certain intersection. So click that. I start to scroll in, right? A lot of intersections across the region. So sometimes the more role model ones might not show with kind of the default number of results. We can start to see, right, where specifically that ratio is or where intersections or segments might be performing worse than expected, right? I can dive in, start to get a sense of what might be going on there. I click, it'll take me directly to that line. I could go to this intersections profile page and start to dive in a little bit deeper on safety outcomes, again, occurring at this specific intersection. We have that same functionality down here for segments as well. Let that load. You'll note that these kind of column headers, right, are going to look similar to other places within the tool. I can start to sort, based on any number of variables right here within this diagram. Back up here to the top, and this is something that's true and is visible on many different pages within the tool, but it's worth explaining on some on functionality that's sometimes a little bit more complicated. You'll see these question marks throughout. These are going to give you some high-level information about how to leverage the specific dashboard, the specific tool that you're working on. Right. Here's our help for the HSM predictive analysis dashboard. This is explaining how to read the dashboard. If there's any kind of logic behind it or any kind of mathematics behind it, you can start to dive into that or see where we're getting our information from. From these question marks, I can also click the Still Need Help tab here on the left. And if I ever need to submit an issue or ask a question or wanted feedback on something I was looking at, I could submit that right here from the tool as well. Continuing along, we'll dive into the spatial statistics dashboard. This is starting to look at geographic patterns as well as demographic properties and various outcomes as it relates to safety across the entire region. Maybe you want to look at counties or census tracts. Could look at municipality, the municipality level. We'll let that load. And start to sort different levels here. Also start to look at different demographic properties, right? Most of these are coming from US Census data, right? American Community Survey data is really powering a lot of the analysis that's happening on this tool, as well as that crash data that we mentioned earlier. You'll see that different areas are popping up here. And also start to look at different outcomes, right? Based on crash data that's in the tool. Right now, this map is only showing income below 25K. Maybe you want to look at both properties, right? So as I scroll in, it's become a little bit more apparent, but you can start to see areas with a high outcome being highlighted in yellow, areas with a high demographic are being highlighted in blue, then areas with high both are turning more towards that white. If I click on any of these specific municipalities, you can see right where this is being placed on the legend. Scrolling down here, you know, can start to, it's easy to play around, right, with some of the demographic and outcome properties, but maybe I'm really interested in what are my strongest relationships here. We sort by IR squared, you know, and start to get a sense of, you know, what are the, in this case, you know, highest, you know, correlation between demographic and outcome properties. If I sort this by the highest R squared, it looks like that jobs per person and crashes per capita of really high R squared. Looks like there's a linear association there. That's worth exploring, diving in. You know, does that logic make sense? Right? If you have more jobs, you're probably, you know, commuting more, higher likelihood that you're going to be involved in a crash. That maybe makes sense, but worth exploring a little bit further. Finally, up here from a dashboarding perspective, we have our vulnerable road user dashboard. This is really highlighting and focusing on non-motorist and vulnerable road user outcomes, right? So those are pedestrians, cyclists, other non-motorized road users, really diving into specifically, right, their outcomes, how are they faring, right, from a safety perspective on the region's roadway network. Start to look, you know, at year over year, how are these trends changing over time, as well as, you know, what is that breakdown between cyclists and pedestrians involved in some of these crashes. Maybe we want to look at severity as well. Have some summary statistics, then can also just look at where all of these crashes specifically are occurring. Before we move on to some different functionality, are there any questions that people have based on what we covered so far? Continuing along, we've looked, you know, at high level, right? What are key outcomes? What are summary statistics for the region? But maybe I, you know, work for a municipality, work for a specific city. I want to dive into some outcomes that are occurring only in my area, or maybe, you know, instead of looking for specific crash types, I'm interested, right, more geographically, right, where crash is occurring, you know, in my city or in my focus area. A great way to start to explore crashes geographically based on the underlying kind of roadway network is our Analyze Areas tool. What this is going to allow you to do is really drill down spatially on crashes that meet priorities. We'll go back to Rancho. Should spell that correctly. Chickamauga, right? We got brought right to this area. And you'll see that the underlying GIS network is being brought up and that segments and intersections are being brought in across the area, right? a lot of white here, which is good. That's showing us that segment or intersection is in the lowest percentile for, in this case, crash rate. Maybe we just want to look at higher percentile segments and intersections and dive in a little bit more. And start to see where those are located on the map. Turn that off. But I can also start to click on these. You'll see that they're being selected for here on the left. Maybe we just did a big intersection design project. I'm interested in what's going on, you know, at this intersection after the work that we've done. I clicked on all these, click Analyze Selection, and the system is going to, based off that very custom geographic, essentially query of locations, it's going to give us summary statistics for crashes that are occurring there, you know, crashes by severity, by day of the week, collision type, weather, condition, light conditions, roadway conditions, as well as some pivot charts to start to dive into this data a little bit more. We're also given a list of all the crashes, right, that meet that geographic criteria. So an easy way to start to explore your jurisdiction or look into kind of crashes that are occurring in specific places that might be difficult to query for otherwise. I could go to any of these specific segment or intersection profile pages just by clicking up here at the top. I could also filter these dates if I just wanted to look, you know, at last year's crashes or something like that. So you can go one step farther though. One piece that we brought in here are our countermeasures, specifically recommended countermeasures based on safety outcomes at the specific area, based on crashes, the types of crashes that are occurring, based on the roadway geometry. The system is able to start to generate a list of countermeasures that might be a good fit for addressing some of the safety concerns that you're seeing. Sometimes it takes a second to load, as we're seeing today, just based on the roadway geometry or the amount of data that's the system is processing. What this is going to do is tee up for us a number. In this case, it looks like we're not pulling up anything, but the system can start to populate and pull up specific countermeasures that could be worth implementing in a specific space. We'll click around and see if we can't find one that gives us some recommendations in a second. But let's say that we go in here, we have identified those safety concerns, right? Maybe we did a whole project to redesign this intersection geometry, you know, changed up some of those, you know, lane configurations or implemented some changes in signal timing, right? And we think, or we hope, right, that's going to have an impact on safety outcomes. Historically, right, doing a before and after study can be time consuming and expensive. What we wanted to do with this tool is make it really easy to start to understand, right, the safety outcomes of the work that you've done and evaluate the success, you know, either positive or negative, right, of safety work or roadway design work. So we choose a number of different kind of time spans here, a date range or days from. We often see people choosing construction period, right? You know, we did our work for a number of days right here in 2021. And then I want to also give some buffer time on either end of those dates to let the public start to, you know, relearn that intersection, you know, get used to that change in traffic pattern, what have you. That default is 1 year, but you can, you know, move that up or down depending on what you like. And if I click here, calculate before and after, the system is going to do is using kind of these dates as that dividing line, give you a sense of what did, you know, crash patterns look like before that period, what do crash patterns and outcomes look like after that period. Now, before you know, we evaluate the effectiveness of anything, right? Nothing was actually done here, and this is just an example, but it does start to you know, illustrate some of the power behind this tool. Right, we can see the number of crashes before and after. You know, was there a change in the number of PDO crashes? Was there a change in the number of injury crashes occurring at this specific intersection? And start to get a sense of has severity been impacted by changes, day of the week? And then again, we have all those high-level summary statistics that we were looking at earlier as well. But again, makes it very easy to see left to right, is the work that we're doing effective? Maybe is there more that needs to be done? Gives you some lessons on the impact of your work. I'll close out of that analysis just for now. Great, I've done some research here. I'm actually going to clear that selection. Maybe I'm now interested in somewhere else. Let's go find something here. Maybe I'm interested in this intersection, right? Click all those segments and intersections. Now they've been selected. You can hold the shift button and you'll see that paint tool select is on. Instead of clicking on these segments and intersections, now all I have to do is hover over and they're going to be selected. Clear that out. Grab a couple of these. Let's try that countermeasure analysis one more time. If anybody has any questions on anything that we've covered so far, feel free to drop those in the chat. Happy to come back to them at the tail end of this conversation. Excellent. All right, so this is populating, which is great, but I can start to see, all right, here's my selection. Here's what we're looking at, those selected intersection. Then we have 16th Street and Tanglewood Avenue, parts of it as well. You'll see that the system is now populating a number of recommended countermeasures that we could implement here, right? Let's install median barrier, lighting, flatten some side slopes, upgrade existing markings, right? As well teed up with cost to implement and expected benefit in terms of dollars, right, of implementing that countermeasure. Maybe, installing lighting is not going to be viable. I can turn that off if I want. But over here on the right, we're able to see, right, if we implement all these things, what's the expected lifetime benefit? What's the expected yearly benefit? Expected lifetime cost, yearly costs of these things, and what that benefit to cost ratio is of implementing some of these countermeasures. If I scroll down, I can start to see the expected impact on injury, on PBO crashes, depending on the location. At the same time, I would also expect that not everybody just has, in this case, $225,000 just lying around for, any random intersection that pops up. Maybe I only have a budget $45,000 to spend. If I click this optimize countermeasures by budget, you'll see that this list of countermeasures has changed, right? The lifetime cost has now been, aligns with that budget that we've set. And we can start to see that benefit to cost ratio has changed as well, right? So if we have a limited budget, what can we do? Here are some places to start to look into a little bit more. We'll close out of this. Let's say that seemed like an exciting prospect. I want to come back to this later. I can always click File and save this current selection. And come back to it later. If I click Load, I have a couple of different places that I can start to load and take a look back at. Excellent. Any questions so far? Feel free to drop those in the chat. Another pretty common workflow that we see quite frequently are collision diagrams, right? Maybe where people are looking at specific intersections or specific corridors. They want to dive in a little bit deeper. There's a number of ways to start to build out and automate and expedite that kind of workflow within the Crash platform. So I just went to my Crash map over here on the left. I'm going to turn off the heat map just because it's been a little bit distracting here. We can maybe zoom into Los Angeles and take a look. Maybe a couple of different quarters. Maybe I'm really interested in crashes that are occurring along this corridor here, Beverly Boulevard. Investigate those further if need be. Just by clicking on them, I can get to that full report. Look here, see all the information I need to about that crash. If I'm working or collaborating with someone, I can always share a crash profile page, a segment profile page, or an intersection profile page with a peer who also has access to the crash platform just by sharing this URL here at the top. Go back to the map. Great. I'm interested in that, but really I'm interested in this whole corridor. And I want to do a collision diagram that captures everything here. Selected my polygon tool there on the right side of the screen, right up here, and click through, made a box that surrounds all these crashes here. If I scroll down, I'll see that I've selected 9 crashes, given high-level summary statistics for them, right? How many are injury versus PDO, right? The general, temporal, when do these occur from a time of day perspective, with any trends there. You'll see I also have this button, add to collision diagram. So I'll click that. You'll see that I don't have any currently, so I'll create a new one. Create a collision diagram. Great. Now it's going to grab all these 9 crashes, and it's going to populate this diagram with them. Great, success. Now I can click this little eye icon right here and view this in a new tab. So resume to this location. You'll see that we have those 9 crashes that we selected earlier, as well as high-level view of what happened at each of these. Maybe I want to look specifically at Cabco severity here, right? Yes, it's nice to know that some of these are injury crashes, but where more severe crashes occurring within this space, I can do that. Maybe turn on, get over here, let's put on the satellite view where a crash is occurring. Get a sense of how these are interacting with real streets. So we have some issues with crosswalks and pedestrians, as well as some rear ends and side swipes associated with this intersection here. If I scroll down, you see that we have more of those detailed summary statistics available to us, right? Severity, day of the week, collision type, time, as well as if I scroll down here, we have that full table that shows us, detailed view of each of these crashes. So reports, I can export those reports if I want to do additional analysis somewhere else, etc. So that's a great way just to dive in a little bit deeper. What I can also do is download this collision diagram. This is something that we can work with you all on to fully customize, right? But I've exported this document. You'll see that it's downloaded here. Click open, and you'll see that we have that collision diagram. Looks like there's a little bit of a visual glitch that's going on here. So I'll look into that. But you can start to get a sense of, at the end of the day, this is a visual, this is an export of exactly what we're seeing over here. And we can, use that to, send to peers, use for presentations, what have you. If there are any files that are maybe associated with this, maybe there's a design exception waiver or files that are tied to maybe construction work or safety work that's been going on here, I can tag those here, leave a comment if I'm working on this with someone. Can also start to look at activity as well. Oh, maybe I don't have permissions for that. Probably a good thing. So we'll go back again. You can see everything that's going on, dive in a little bit deeper, and export this if need be. Right. Any questions here before I go through a couple of different workflows that I could see people using? All right. So one thing that we sometimes get asked, great, we have dashboards that highlight, for the entire region, what are severe outcomes looking like? But, maybe I only, work for Riverside County, right? Or I'm only interested in things that are happening in Los Angeles proper. How do I start to drill down, focus on crashes that are happening in my area, right, within my jurisdiction? There's a number of ways to start to do that. One way is on the crash map. You'll see that we have layers, these jurisdictional layers listed over here on the left. We turn off the heat map again. But maybe we want to turn on some jurisdictional data. Turn on crash location just to illustrate things here. Again, we have set these up in conjunction with SCAG, but if there are additional kind of layers we should bring in, let us know. We're happy to do that. Maybe I'm working for a specific city. I just want to dive into crashes that are occurring in my city. Zoom in as this loads in. All right, there we go. Everything is starting to load in. Go back to Rancho Cucamonga again. I click on my city, you'll see that it highlights. You'll also see that I'll get those jurisdictional data that we were looking at with our polygon selection. That's going to load for the city as well. So start to explore, or maybe I have a constituent that's asking about safety. Boom, here's my summary level statistics that I can use to answer their question on the phone, as opposed to going back and forth over email. What's nice is that all these jurisdictional boundaries can also be leveraged within the query tool, right? So when we're looking at crashes or trying to find specific types of crashes, we don't have to look at things from a region-wide perspective. I can start to look, specifically at the jurisdictional level that I care about. Maybe I'm only interested in specific severities, or maybe I'm only interested in, we'll go down here. Maybe I'm only interested in specific injury codes, right? A lot of analysis really only focuses on Ks and As. So we'll select those. Maybe I'm only interested in a specific council district. Again, this is kind of an open search bar. It'll find filters, so you don't have to scroll through all of these for each of these different kind of filter types. But we'll go down to location that filters cities. Maybe I want to specifically just look at so there's a lot here. We'll find Rancho Cucamonga again. There we go. Hit query. So we're looking at crashes that are occurring from 2023 till the end of data in the system, so late 2024, that meet these parameters, right? So this date, time, and these injury codes, and is located right within the cities that we've selected for. So a couple of different filters there, and very quickly we're given both a map of where these are occurring, as well as those summary statistics that we're interested in, right? Total crashes, how many fatalities, any serious injuries, total injuries. I can see those summary statistics, right? Dive into this a little bit further. Maybe I just want to look specifically at the people involved, right? Is there an age, is there a specific crash that I want to dive into? I can go to that full report if need be. Can also click over here on segments and intersections and start to get a sense of within the area that I've queried for, right? What are those segments or intersections of highest concern? Where do I need to focus my time? Great. This is useful. I've got my high-level summary statistics, but I know that I'm going to need to come back to this later, right? This is a report or this is a query that I'm, return to regularly, what I can do is I can save this. So it's going to save these parameters. I'll click Save Query over here. Boom, there we go. Tied to me over here. Here's that query that we just did. Now, we can use these saved queries to build out our own dashboards if need be. Go down to Design, Custom Dashboards, and maybe that Vision Zero dashboard is nice to have from a regional perspective, but maybe I want to build out my own Vision Zero dashboard for my specific city or jurisdiction. And build this out. It's going to keep this to be a personal dashboard for now. But if you have the proper permissions, you can make that to an organization-wide or even a public dashboard to share some of this information more broadly. You see that we've created this dashboard here. Let's start maybe replicating that Vision Zero dashboard that we explored earlier. Start with the map. I want to see where all these crashes are occurring. Resize that so it's useful. Maybe we want some specific numbers here. I want to know the total fatalities. Add that widget in. It's also, I'm going to want to know the total injuries, some key summary statistics. You'll see that these are being added here, and we can play around with their location later. Maybe I want to know total crashes. Then we'll add one more after this with maybe the number of people involved. Maybe we want the number of pedestrians involved. Great. Click OK. And you'll see that all these have been added here at the bottom. When I reload the page, these total fatalities and total injuries will show up correctly. You can see that very quickly, right? We can kind of rebuild that dashboard whatever way we like, highlight, key information. This isn't going to look very pretty because I'm doing it in 2 seconds, right? But you can play around with the sizing of this, make this look however you like, highlight key details. Let's save this layout. Save my work. It's always a good thing. And then I'll click another, we'll add a couple more widgets here. If I want a pie chart, really focusing on collision type. So that's added here. Let's resize it. Great. So lots of different widgets we can start to add here. Line charts, pivot charts for dates, numbers, custom text, person tables, crash tables, pie charts, pivot charts, as well as a map. So lots of different things that we can start to do and add into a custom dashboard. But at the end of the day, right, this can highlight whatever information that we really want to highlight, again, from that query that we built that specifically drills down on our area of interest. So hopefully one way to make things that much more, makes that kind of analysis much easier and at hand when you log into the tool. Excellent. Right. We're coming right up on the hour mark. I did kind of want to open it up at this point to talk more broadly or answer any questions that might have come up. If people wanted me to discuss or walk through certain workflows within the tool, analysis that you might do regularly, happy to recreate how you might be able to do some of that work within the platform, within the Crash platform. So feel free to drop any of those questions or workflows within the chat. You can review those in real time as a team.
Just point that on the scanning
Mike, I couldn't quite hear you there. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat at the moment.
Great question, Emilio. That is a key one. If you have, if you want to get access to the platform, right, it is available, right, to the SCAG region. It's available to SCAG partners, municipalities and counties and jurisdictions, right, underneath the SCAG umbrella, as well as partners working on those organizations' behalf. So reach out to Mike Gaynor here, and we'll work to get you a login and access to the tool. But it's a web-based platform, right? So you don't need to download anything. There's no software install or anything like that. You just need access, a login, right, to authenticate yourself as you log in, and you'll have access to all this functionality.
Okay, you can keep entering questions in the chat as they come up, and I'll inform Jonah. Do you have any further demonstration, Jonah?
So we've pretty much covered the main functional aspects of the tool, right? There's, some other stuff behind the scenes, right? If you specifically want to review crashes, or if you have admin privileges, which are going to stay at the SCAG level for now. But we've covered most of the main pieces of the tool from a functionality perspective. There we go. It's asking me to save. Smart. Happy to go back through any pieces of the tool that we covered last week for folks that were not able to make it. Looks like, oh, Smell, here's a question. All right, so looking at side-by-side comparisons with the street with and without improvements. Looking at two different segments and looking at changes over time, or improvement over time. That's great. Good question. I think the place that you would go for that would still be this Analyze Areas tool. And sometimes a really easy way to do this is just by duplicating, right, the tab here at the top if we want to look at two specific similar segments, right, but not compare them together. Maybe I'm interested in these over here. I want to look at this in a second, right? Analyze the selection. We're given high-level overview, right? What's going on here? What are the safety outcomes on East Greenwood Ave? You can save any of these charts for later, or look at specific time frames here. Then maybe I want to click off on these, and we'll go across and look at this next strip. Analyze selection. And there we go for our, essentially the two different views that we're looking at here. So that's one way that I'd look at it. And again, to make things simple for you, right, we can always save a selection, right? So you're not going through this little workflow of clicking things each time.
Okay, Jonah, I don't see any further questions in the chat.
All right. Well, I appreciate the questions that have come through. If additional questions come up, please send them Mike or my way. We'll endeavor to answer them as quickly as possible. And yeah, we want to make sure this is a usable, useful, and impactful tool for you all. So if there are ever any questions on how do I do X, how do I do Y, within the platform, feel free to reach out and we'll make sure that you feel confident in your use of the tool. Sometimes, just clicking through and playing with it right after you get access will probably open up some additional questions as well. And we're happy to answer those as they come up. And as always, right, we have this, help buttons down here. Anywhere you see this kind of question mark, right, type out your question and we'll get back to you as soon as possible.
Okay, Jonah, thank you. And Jennifer, if we could have the last couple of slides up to wrap up. Okay, again, thank you, Jonah, for your demonstration of the transportation safety predictive and modeling and analysis platform for us today. And again, this is a work in progress that we are fortunate to have received funding through the Governor's Office of Transportation Safety. We are looking forward to providing additional future demonstrations of the tool as it progresses, and perhaps through a forum like this, we can arrange future meetings. Again, if you have any questions regarding the platform or Jonah's presentation, feel free to reach out to me at SCAG, and I will get back to you as quickly as possible. And just to wrap up our session today, thanks again to Jonah from Cidian for introducing the platform these past 2 weeks. We've enjoyed learning about the tool this session, as well as the one we had last Tuesday. And thank you also to all the participants. I hope you found both of these sessions to be informative. And we'd like to invite you to take a brief 2-minute survey to help us support future Toolbox Tuesdays. A link will also pop up when the meeting ends, so you don't have to have your phone ready at this moment. And I'd also like to give a special thanks to our AV technician, Jennifer Martinez, and to all the other SCAG staff who helped put this event together today. Thank you again to all participants and to Cidian, and we hope to have the opportunity to present to you again in the future. So please stay safe and healthy and have a great day. Thank you.